The life and reign of Eadred. History remembers the great kings, those who led armies, forged empires, and left behind legacies carved into stone. But what about the ones who ruled in the shadows of history? The ones whose strength and determination shaped the fate of a nation, yet whose names are barely whispered in the pages of time. One such king was Eadred of England, a ruler who took the throne in a time of crisis, a man who, despite his frail body, stood against the Viking warlords who sought to tear his kingdom apart. A leader who, through strategy and sheer force of will, accomplished what so many before him could not. The final unification of England under one rule. This is the story of a king often forgotten, but without whom England's history might have taken a very different path. This is the story of King Eadred Har. Chapter 1. The Warrior King with a Weak Body. Eadred was born around 923 AD into the powerful House of Wessex. He was the son of Edward the Elder, and the grandson of the legendary Alfred the Great. His family had spent generations fighting the Vikings, who had plagued England for over a century. From the moment of his birth, Eadred was destined to be part of this struggle. But there was one problem. He was sickly. Unlike his warrior ancestors, who fought with swords in hand, Eadred struggled with a debilitating illness. Chroniclers from the time described him as having a painful condition that made eating difficult. Some say he could barely consume solid food, surviving mostly on liquids. Others believe he suffered from a severe digestive disease or even a jaw disorder. That left him constantly in pain, but despite his weak body, his mind was as sharp as a blade. He may not have had the physical strength of a warrior, but he had something just as powerful, the will to rule and the wisdom to win battles without lifting a sword himself. Chapter number 2. The Murder That Changed Everything. In 946 AD, Eadred's older brother, King Edmund I, was assassinated. The story of his death is both tragic and bizarre. Edmund had been attending a feast when a banished outlaw named Leofa somehow entered the royal hall. In a sudden act of violence, the outlaw attacked the king, a struggle followed, and Edmund was fatally stabbed in the chest. His death sent shockwaves through the kingdom. Edmund had been a strong and capable ruler, and his unexpected murder left England vulnerable. He had 2 young sons, but they were too young to rule. And so, the throne passed to Eadred, his younger brother. A sickly man, barely in his 20s, now held the fate of England in his hands. Would he prove to be a weak ruler, easily manipulated by nobles? Or would he rise to the challenge? Eadred wasted no time answering that question. Chapter number 3 is The Battle for Northumbria. The greatest threat to England at the time was Northumbria, the northernmost kingdom. Though technically part of England, it had always been a land of rebellion, often siding with Viking rulers rather than the kings of Wessex. And now, a new enemy had arrived. Eric Bloodaxe. Eric was a former King of Norway, a fierce Viking warlord with a reputation for brutality. He seized control of Northumbria, declaring himself king and rejecting Eadred's rule. Eadred had a choice. Allow England to fracture or strike back with full force. He chose war. In 948 AD, Eadred launched a brutal campaign against Northumbria. He ordered his forces to burn the city of Ripon to the ground. A warning to those who defied him. The message was clear: defy the king and face total destruction. The Northumbrians, frightened by his ruthlessness, abandoned Eric Bloodaxe and swore loyalty to Eadred Orstapar. But as Eadred's army withdrew, disaster struck. At Castleford, Viking warriors ambushed the English army, inflicting heavy casualties. Enraged, Eadred sent word to Northumbria. If they did not surrender completely, he would return and lay waste to the entire region. The Northumbrians bowed to his demands. Eric Bloodaxe was driven out, his rule shattered, But Eadred knew that as long as the Vikings remained a force in the north, the threat was never truly gone, and he was right. Now chapter number 4, the final defeat of Eric Bloodaxe. In Lihu Lapert. 952 AD, Alcar, Northumbria rebelled once more, and once again Eric Bloodaxe returned, determined to reclaim his lost kingdom. But this time, Eadred didn't need to lift a sword. Instead, he used political cunning. He worked behind the scenes, turning Northumbrian nobles against Turquoise. Eric, Eadred bribed them, negotiated with them, and slowly dismantled Eric's support as sets. Finally, in 954 AD, Eric Bloodaxe was betrayed and assassinated by his own people. With his death, Viking rule in England ended forever. Northumbria was now fully under the control of the English crown, a momentous achievement in the long war against the Norse invaders. Eadred had done what even Alfred the Great had struggled to achieve. He had unified England under one rule. Chapter number 5. A king's final days. Eadred's reign was victorious, but his own body had betrayed him. Years of illness had taken their toll. By report, 955 AD. His health had deteriorated rapidly. At just 32 years old, he passed away. His body was laid to rest in Winchester, the ancient burial site of the West Saxon kings. But unlike his ancestors, his tomb was lost to history. Last but not the least, Chapter 6. Little-known facts. First is, one of the most unique things about Eadred was his mysterious illness. Chroniclers wrote that he had trouble swallowing and could only consume liquid foods. Some historians believe Eadred had a severe digestive disorder, possibly an early form of Crohn's disease or even jaw necrosis, which made eating incredibly painful. Despite this, Eadred refused to step down. He fought through pain, led armies, and ruled England effectively, even when his own body was failing him. Second one is, Eadred was also a financial innovator. He set up one of England's earliest royal treasuries, keeping tight control over the kingdom's wealth. He centralized money collection, which helped him fund military campaigns against Viking rebels. His ability to manage money so well helped strengthen the English monarchy, something future kings would build upon. And Eadred had little patience for nobles who sought power. Instead, he placed his trust in the church, especially Dunstan, the future Archbishop of Canterbury. He relied on monks and religious leaders to help govern, laying the groundwork for a stronger alliance between the English monarchy and the church. This partnership between the church and the crown would influence English politics for centuries. Third fact is, unlike most Anglo-Saxon kings, Eadred never married and left no children. Some speculate that his illness prevented him from seeking a wife, while others believe he was simply too focused on ruling and defending England. His lack of an heir led to a turbulent succession after his death, as his nephew Edwig took the throne in 955, and Eadred died at just 32 years old. Chroniclers described his illness worsening, but the exact cause of his death remains unknown. Was it a long-term disease? Was he poisoned? We may never know for sure. His body was buried at Winchester, but unlike other kings, his grave was never clearly marked. Today, his final resting place is lost to history. Now, at the end, we want to tell that Eadred's successor, Edwig Mutu Arki, would undo much of his work, leading England into chaos once more, but Eadred's legacy remained. He had secured England's unity. He had crushed the Viking threat, and he had ruled, not with brute force, but with strategy, determination, and intelligence. Though history may forget his name, the kingdom he built still stands today. This was the reign of Berhuero, King Eadred, one more forgotten king of England. If you found that interesting, hit like, subscribe, and stick around for more royal secrets.